Portland's Friday Forum, Oregon's premier public affairs forum. I'm Sue Thomas, president of City Club, and I welcome you all, those of you here at the Governor Hotel, and those of you listening on OPB or KPBS radio or watching on cable television. Thank you for joining City Club today on Friday, July 24th for this week's Friday Forum. Today we welcome Erin Flynn, Urban Development Director for the Portland Development Commission, who will discuss the city's 5-year plan to grow the economy, create jobs, and sustain the quality of life that Portland residents enjoy. But first, some announcements. In consideration of those sitting close to you and those in our radio and television audiences, I ask that everyone in the room who has not already done so to please silence your cell phones and other devices that make noise. Thank you. As always, we offer our appreciation to our Friday Forum corporate sponsors for this quarter, without whose generous financial support these time-honored City Club luncheons would not be possible. Our corporate sponsors for this quarter are the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde and the law firm of Stoll Reeves. Please join me in thanking our sponsors. If your company or firm would like to sponsor a Friday Forum, please contact City Club staff at the back of the room or call the City Club office. City Club's popular Citizen Salon Dinner and Discussion series continues with intimate meals and informed discussions on a wide variety of topics. On August 25th, over a delicious Indian-style meal, local chef and restaurant owner David Mikado will discuss the role of the chef in a progressive society. To register for this and other upcoming salons, please go to the City Club website. Also coming up is a discussion of Walter Mosley's book, The Right Mistake, at the Citizens Read Book Group on July 29th. And the New Leaders Council Power Trip to the Bonneville Dam and the Klondike Wind Farm on August 15th should also be a lot of fun, so please join them on that. To learn more about these events, please visit the City Club website. Next week on July 31st, City Club begins the first of a 2-part Friday Forum series on the successes and failures of Oregon's 75th legislative session. Please join us then for a panel discussion with House Speaker Dave Hunt, Senator Margaret Carter, Senate Leader Ted Ferrioli, and Senate President Peter Courtney. And now on to today's program. With its commitment to sustainability and green living, Portland frequently ranks as one of America's most livable cities. But the high quality of life that brings people to Portland does not automatically translate to economic opportunities or jobs once they're here. To help reconcile this issue, Mayor Sad Adams charged the Portland Development Commission to create a targeted strategy that would guide the city's investments over the next 5 years. The result, the Portland Economic Development Strategy, or more colloquially, the 5-year plan. Today we will learn about this plan and how its focus on maximizing the competitive environment, driving urban core innovation, and stimulating a neighborhood business vitality can help fulfill the ambitious goal of creating 10,000 new jobs in Portland. Today's speaker received her PhD in political economy from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology in 2000. Her career path led her to FutureWorks, a Boston-based policy and strategy consulting firm focused on regional economic development. As their vice president, Flynn led the creation of regional growth strategies in Boston, Salt Lake City, and the Portland-Vancouver region. She also directed major national economic development initiatives that strove both to improve the business environment and to create public policies that reduce social and economic disparity. Our speaker joined the Portland Development Commission in 2007 as their urban development director. In this role, she drives agency strategy and directs the work of PDC's Central City, neighborhood, and business and industry teams. She also spearheaded the development of the Portland Economic Development Strategy. Please help me welcome today's speaker, Erin Flynn.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's great to be here this morning to address the City Club. Thank you, Sue Thomas. I am Erin Flynn, Director of Urban Development at the Portland Development Commission, and I'm here today to share with you the City of Portland's 5-year economic development strategy. I am really delighted to be making this presentation because I do think that this strategy in many respects represents a turning point for the City of Portland. I came to town about 2 years ago from Boston to head up economic development efforts at the Portland Development Commission. And prior to coming to Portland, I worked as a national consultant for several years, helping cities and regions identify their competitive advantages and craft strategies for economic growth. I was surprised when I arrived at the PDC to learn that the city didn't have a roadmap for economic development and that there was no officially adopted strategy to guide economic development efforts for the city of Portland. I discovered, in fact, the city hadn't had an adopted strategy since 1994, for 15 years, and that while a strategy was developed in 2002, it was never adopted by the City Council, nor did it have the public-private buy-in and support required for successful implementation. I'm pleased to say that on July 8th, that changed. The City Council unanimously and enthusiastically adopted the City of Portland Economic Development Strategy. And in fact, this was a recommendation that the City Club made in its scan of the business environment last year, that we needed the city to focus on economic development and to work in collaboration with regional and state partners to drive job creation and job growth. I want to thank Mayor Sam Adams, who's here today, for his leadership on this critically important issue for our city and region. The mayor has been a huge champion for job creation and economic development, both as a city commissioner and now as mayor. The team at PDC has been working very closely with the mayor, his economic development cabinet, and his staff, many of whom are here today, on the development of the strategy, building momentum for adoption. I don't think we'd be here today without the mayor's leadership on this issue, and we look forward to working with him and his team very closely on implementation. I also want to acknowledge the many groups that provided input on the strategy. We vetted the strategy very extensively with groups across the city, ranging from the Working Waterfront Coalition to the Alliance of Portland Neighborhood Business Associations to the Small Business Advisory Council to the Portland Business Alliance. We received great input and feedback, and we engaged in great dialogue, including some heated discussion about the strategy, about what should be in, what should be out, and where we should focus our scarce resources. So what I want to do this afternoon is provide a high-level overview of the strategy. I'm going to provide you with the essential framework of the strategy, the bones of the strategy. There's lots of detail, and I don't have the benefit of visual aids, but on your brochure, you can see our website. You can find the data, the supporting materials for the website, as well as PowerPoints and videos that we've created that feature many of Portland's great businesses. So what I'm going to do is first provide context. Why do we need a strategy today in the city of Portland? Second, I'm going to provide a high-level overview of key action items in the strategy. And then finally, I'll discuss implementation. How are we going to accomplish our goals? So I want to begin with some context and provide you with the basic premise of the strategy. I started out by saying that the adoption of this strategy signals a shift for the city. We all know that strategies in and of themselves are not what matters. It's the leadership and the political will required to deliver on a strategy that's important. But the fact that Portland hasn't even had a strategy in place for 15 years is, I think, very significant. It reflects the fact that job creation and business development have not been a focus or a high priority for this city. What has been a great focus for Portland, and what Portland is extraordinarily good at, is urban planning and placemaking. Through far-sighted investments in land use, alternative transportation, and central city redevelopment, Portland has developed a national reputation for quality of life and sustainability. In fact, the city has become so successful in these realms that Portland has become a destination of choice, especially for 20-somethings, and we see young people flocking from all over the country to live in Portland, populating our close-in neighborhoods and contributing in a very significant way to Portland's cool factor. Portland has also become a darling of the national media. We've got a tremendous amount of press, beer, bikes, food carts, and the Pearl District. They love us. We rank high on all the competitive city indicators, as you noted, Sue. The greenest city, the best city to live in, the best city to bike in, the best city to raise a family in. The accolades abound. But there is a disconnect. The quality of life and quality of place that we've created here has not automatically translated into widespread economic opportunity or job creation. This strategy puts a stake in the ground and makes the case that Portland must turn its attention sharply to the fundamentals of job creation and economic development, to research and development, to technology transfer, to the incubation of small businesses, and to the retention and expansion of existing small and large businesses. We've created a great place. We've got the talent and the creativity. Now we need to build a world-class economy. In short, we need to leverage our far-sighted investments in placemaking and quality of life to create a deeper economy, a thicker labor market, and widespread prosperity for all. I would argue that a focus on job creation and economic growth hasn't historically been part of Portland's DNA, not the way it is in other cities that we like to compare ourselves to, like Austin, Texas, Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina, or San Jose, California. But I do think that we're at a tipping point. There's a strong collective desire to up our game in economic development across businesses of all sizes, from small family businesses to venture capitalists. There is broad recognition that it is time for the city to get focused on job creation. And I would add that this is not a theoretical issue or a nice-to-have thing for the city of Portland. We have 12% unemployment, which doesn't seem to be budging. And this high rate of unemployment does reflect our dependence on trade, on a trade-based economy, as well as the collapse of the housing and financial markets. But it also reflects the fact that people continue to move here. So despite the weaknesses on our economy, we continue to see people moving to the city. We're anticipating growth 6 times that of the nation as a whole. So we've really got to figure out how to skill up our workers and grow more companies. We do see other weaknesses in our economy that I think are important for all of us to pay attention to. We have lower median income in Portland, in the city of Portland, than in San Francisco or Seattle. 45,000 median income here compared to 56,000 in Seattle and 65,000 in San Francisco. And our poverty rates are considerably higher here, 16.6 in Portland compared to 13% in Seattle and 12% in San Francisco. So we need to focus on this issue. We need to take it seriously as a city and as a community. What is the big opportunity for Portland? The Portland region does have a big opportunity. It can be the center of the global green economy. We've got all the right ingredients. We have a large and growing concentration of firms in clean technology. Clean tech includes firms in renewable energy, including wind, solar, wave, and biomass. It also includes businesses involved in energy efficiency, environmental engineering, and consulting firms involved in green building. Last month, the Pew Charitable Trust released a new study that attempts to define and size the clean energy economy in the United States. Oregon stands out in almost every category when compared to the nation. We have a higher concentration of jobs in clean tech than any other state in the country. We are among the top 3 states with large and fast-growing clean energy economy. This is based on the total number of jobs and annual growth rates. Colorado and Tennessee are the other 2 that rank in the top 3. And we're a leader nationally in energy efficiency. A lot of the large firms in this space are located in Portland or the Portland region. Vestas is growing its headquarters here in the city of Portland. Iberdrola is headquartered in the Pearl District. CH2M Hill, Girding Eadlin, SolarWorld, and Soleix. We have an increasing cluster of these clean technology firms here in the city and region. We've also got deep manufacturing capacity in Portland to support the growth of the clean tech economy, to design, build, and produce the required parts, components, solar panels, streetcars, and carbon-neutral buildings. One of the things we have to remember is that Portland and Oregon are very good at building things. This is a capacity and a distinctive capacity that we have, and we need to figure out how to harness that to this new clean, green economy. We have years of shared values and leadership on environmental issues. The City Council of Portland has been very progressive, very forward-looking in terms of passing policies that contribute to a green economy, such as our green building policy, our alternative fuel standard, and the City Council Climate Action Plan. And most importantly, we have an influx of talented people working in these fields. People are coming to Portland to be part of this new economy. They're attracted to the city because of the values that it emanates throughout the country. We do have the potential to be at the forefront of a global marketplace seeking solutions to climate change and environmental degradation. But here's the key. We have to want it. It's a very competitive world out there, and the lead is ours to lose. Metros across North America, from Chicago to Austin to Boston, are also positioning themselves to capitalize on the shift away from carbon-based technologies. And these peer regions are more sophisticated than us when it comes to economic development. They're better organized and they're better funded. We have some real first-mover advantages, but the race is on. We recently conducted at the Portland Development Commission a study that benchmarked Portland against the competition. Other cities, including Austin, Denver, Seattle, Boston, and Minneapolis, have more generous long-haul revenue streams and more flexible tools to support economic development than Portland does. They also have more staff capacity. Many of these cities also have more robust regional economic development infrastructure in charge of business recruitment and marketing for the region. And that's a challenge that we face here in Portland. We have many organizations and a lack of coordination historically between our economic development groups. For too long, Portland has relied almost exclusively on tax increment finance for economic development. TIF, as we call it, is a fabulous tool for physical redevelopment, and it has helped make the Portland the great city that it is. But TIF has a lot of limitations when it comes to economic development. It can only fund bricks and mortar development, and only in 15% of the city at any given time. It doesn't help us recruit companies, grow companies, capitalize companies, or provide the targeted technical assistance that small companies need to grow and prosper. The mayor and city council recognize the need to invest in economic development, and the Portland Development Commission received more general fund this year than in previous years, which is very encouraging. But we will need to work hard together to identify new resources and revenue streams to support the strategy. So that was context setting. What I want to do now is move into the strategy itself. Our goal is to create a thriving green economy that utilizes and builds off our historic assets and embraces the creativity, energy, and vitality embodied by new talent. We aren't starting from scratch. We've got a very solid economic foundation here in Portland and the region. We have a diffuse trade-based economy composed primarily of small firms and anchored by a strong manufacturing and high-tech base, a very strategic location at the Pacific Rim, a world-class airport with direct flights from Asia or to Asia and Europe, and the third largest U.S. marine port on the West Coast. We want to be the first in clean tech, but I think it's important to recognize that clean tech is simply the tip of the spear. The strategy leads with clean tech because global trends and U.S. policy priorities suggest that this will be a large and growing field for years to come with increasing market demand. Portland is well positioned to be a player in this space, and we need to seize this opportunity. We need to be aggressive about maintaining, as I said, our first mover status in this area. But clean tech industries are not a panacea. We need to work smarter with all of our traded sector businesses, and especially those that promise growth. In addition, we need a concerted effort in the City of Portland on scaling the many small firms, the many promising small firms in a variety of industry sectors that contain fast growth potential. We know that most of our job growth will come from existing firms, small firms that are already here today, not from recruitment. We also want all of our businesses, new and old, large and small, to adopt sustainable business practices such as lean manufacturing, zero waste, and natural step. Sustainable business practices create more efficient companies, more profitable companies, and reduce environmental impact. So how are we going to get there? We have very ambitious goals and very limited resources. So the key is going to be to focus. We're going to drill down in 3 key areas, and I'm going to talk about these for a few minutes each. Number 1, we're going to maximize the competitive environment for traded sector companies. Number 2, we're going to drive urban core innovation. And number 3, we're going to stimulate small business and neighborhood vitality. Keys to our success will really rely on aligning institutional partners in the City of Portland, aligning all of our bureaus toward a common purpose and common goal, aligning with our regional and state partners, including Greenlight Greater Portland, the Oregon Business Development Department, and the Oregon Business Plan, and very importantly, coordinating with the private sector, bringing the private sector into this discussion, into this strategy in a deep and meaningful way. A lot of accomplishing our goals is about working smarter together. As I said before, the Portland region struggles with institutional coordination and collaboration. We really need to focus on bringing all of our energy behind these common goals. And I think we did do a good job throughout the strategy process of bringing our partners in, getting their buy-in, hearing their concerns, and integrating their perspective into the plan. So first, maximizing the competitive environment. We are living in a period of fierce competition, nationally and internationally. City success depends on our ability to create an environment where innovation can happen more quickly than in other regions. To fuel innovation, the City of Portland has adopted an industry cluster strategy and will focus its energy in 4 clusters. The first is clean tech, which I've already described. The second is advanced manufacturing. This is our metals, machinery, and transportation equipment sector. The third is software, firms involved in computer systems design, software publishers, internet service providers, and data processing. And the fourth is activewear, firms engaged in the design, production, or marketing of sports and athletic apparel and outdoor gear. Firms in these 4 industries have a strong propensity to cluster in the Portland region due to a concentration of talent, capable suppliers, access to markets, and also to tap into the innovation and creativity that comes from being located near your competitors and your peers. There's a lot of agreement and alignment on these 4 clusters. As I said, our regional partners, Greenlight Greater Portland and Oregon Business Development, have also identified these as key clusters for the region and state. I do want to just take a minute to answer the question why we selected these 4 clusters from a sort of quantitative perspective. First, they're all traded sector industries, which means they sell goods and services outside the region, bringing new wealth into the region, and each of them contains almost limitless potential for growth as they tap new markets across the country and globe. Second, they're concentrated above national norms, both in terms of talent and the number of firms. This indicates that Portland has specialization or distinct competitive advantages in these industries, and that firms select Portland over other destinations to do business in these industries. Third, they're growing quickly, faster than in the nation as a whole. Fourth, they pay high wages. Jobs in these 4 industry clusters pay well above the median wage for Portland. And I think very importantly, they drive other industries. We call this the multiplier effect, so that as these companies grow, as these industries grow, we see growth in our professional service firms, our business service firms, and our distribution and logistics companies. So as the traded sector grows, so the economy grows. To support these 4 clusters, the city will focus on international exports. We're going to be working with companies to help them expand their access to international markets. We will work closely with our partners in higher education, the Oregon University System, and Oregon Inc. to align research and development investments in support of these clusters. We're working closely with PSU to help them become a center of excellence in sustainability, innovation, and talent development. We're going to be focusing very sharply on workforce development, developing the pipeline of skilled workers who can support the growth of these industries. And finally, we will identify and drive catalytic initiatives that enhance the competitiveness of these industries as a whole. And as an example, I'll highlight the Harbor Ready effort to support the growth of industrial firms in the city of Portland. We're working very aggressively to clean up contaminated land along the harbor so that we can have available large parcels of land for the kind of clean tech industries that we want to recruit and grow in the region. Okay, the second big area of the strategy, driving urban core innovation. Portland Central City, as we all know, is a competitive asset to the entire region. It represents our brand, and it embodies our commitment to sustainability. We're well known across the country as a vibrant, dense, user-friendly city characterized by light rail and streetcar, bike infrastructure, and green buildings. We're often referred to as the most European city in the United States. We need to stay on the cutting edge of urban innovation, but we need to do so in a way that focuses sharply on job creation. So our goal in this part of the strategy is to really drive urban core innovation through redevelopment activities that both showcase our expertise in green technology, attract those traded sector companies to locate downtown, as well as demonstrating our commitment to higher education through partnerships with both PSU and OHSU. So the first area here is a focus on next generation built environment. Many of you have probably heard or read about the Oregon Sustainability Center, otherwise known as the Living Building. This is a center of excellence on the PSU campus that will house academic researchers, public policy experts, and businesses all working in the clean tech space. And they will be housed in the first, I believe, the world's first large-scale living building, which is a building that emits no carbon. The second area of innovation in the urban core will be the development of eco-districts. Eco-districts essentially take the green building notion to scale, shared green infrastructure at a neighborhood level, and many of our partners and PDC are engaged in assessing sites currently for the first eco-district. Second, we'll be focusing sharply on job creation in the central city. We've made very significant investments in transit downtown. We aren't seeing the kind of density in terms of employment that we want to see, and we need to really look at our key redevelopment sites in the central city as job creation sites. So when we think about the potential of the post office or the Burnside Bridgehead or Centennial Mills or Conway, we need to be thinking about those as job sites and as a way to really attract firms that we want to come to Portland. Finally, we're going to work with the mayor's office closely to launch a branding strategy for the city of Portland. We do have a brand, but I think predominantly it's a lifestyle brand. And what we need to do now is own our brand and let people know that we are more than a great place to live. We are also a great place to do business. We're finding on our international business trips, particularly in Asia, that we don't have the name recognition that we need to be an attractive location for foreign direct investment. Okay, the third key part of the strategy is stimulating small business and neighborhood vitality. Small business really is Portland's lifeblood, and I think we need to do many people think we need to do a better job of identifying and supporting small business enterprise, that those small businesses that really have the potential to grow, to become the next big thing. We have a tradition of this in Portland. Many of our favorite hometown brands started as small businesses serving local markets and then expanded to serve regional, national, and even international markets. Widmer Brewing Company, Leatherman Tool, and Columbia Sportswear all come to mind. We have all this wonderful creativity and talent in our city, but a lot of our budding entrepreneurs simply don't have the business background or the business acumen to take their companies to the next level and really be those job generators that we need. So we want to build the capacity of our local entrepreneurs to innovate and compete in the global economy by doing better matchmaking, by finding those people with great ideas who need to be partnered with good business people and pools of capital to take their great ideas to market and scale up their companies. We're working closely with many of the organizations in the entrepreneurial space right now to figure out how we can work smarter in this area. We refer to this as economic gardening or growing our own. The second area in this part of the strategy is commercial corridor revitalization through the development of a Main Streets program. Another really wonderful quality about Portland is that the city has these great neighborhood business districts that are anchored by small local companies providing basic services, retail, and dining experiences. And we've seen incredible revitalization in many close-in neighborhoods like Mississippi and Alberta in Northeast, and Hawthorne and Division in Southeast. We want to bring this vitality and this ability to really serve local neighborhoods to more neighborhoods in the city, neighborhoods like St. John's and Gateway. And the Main Streets program will be a competitive process where neighborhood downtowns can compete for technical assistance and grants to really drive thriving commercial districts. Finally, to support small business activities, the city will develop an online web portal that serves as a one-stop shop for entrepreneurs and small business owners. We've heard repeatedly, in fact, for several years, that the city's small business services are very hard to navigate. So we need to streamline all of these services that the city offers and the kinds of consulting and financial assistance that's out there for small firms, and make it a lot easier for small companies to get the services they need. So to reiterate, 3 areas, 3 big ambitious goals: maximize the competitive environment for traded sector companies, drive urban core innovation, and stimulate small businesses and neighborhood vitality. I want to wrap up by just taking a couple of minutes to talk about implementation. The first thing I want to say is that a lot of this work is already underway. We've been organizing forums, focus groups with business leaders and several of the industry clusters. We've drafted agreements with a number of our government and higher ed partners to deliver on the goals contained in the strategy, including the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability, PSU, and Workforce Systems. So we're really driving that coordination and formalizing it through this process. And then growing out of the Mayor's Economic Development Cabinet, we're going to create 2 committees that will essentially oversee this work and hold us accountable and help drive the work. The first is an implementation oversight committee that will really provide oversight on work plans, metrics, and achieving goals. And the second is more focused on resource development, really tapping sort of the collective brain of the business community and of smart finance people in our community who can help us figure out how we can identify new revenue streams to deliver on the strategy, how we can capitalize small companies, what kinds of capital venture pools can we put together to really grow that part of our economy. So we're going to need a lot of help. We're going to need your participation, and I hope you will join us in creating 10,000 jobs for the city of Portland over the next 5 years. Thank you very much. That's it? Okay.
The first question from our speaker, as always, will be from our Board of Governors host. Our board host today is Sharon Van Sickle Robbins. Sharon operates a cut flower business with 20,000 peony plants on Sauvie Island. She's been a City Club member since 1996 and last year served as the club's secretary. She is currently the club's president-elect and she chaired the recent business environment study. Sharon?
Thank you. Ernst & Young reported that for FY 2008, Oregon's business tax of 3.7% of gross state product was the lowest of all other states with those benchmark metro areas that you mentioned. And the new 5-year economic development plan doesn't include objectives for continuing to evaluate or modify the city's business income tax, for instance. So does that mean that the region's current level of business taxation is not inhibiting job growth in the region? Conversely, is the low tax rate something that we should be working on to make more positive in terms of helping us do job creation?
The strategy does not, it could have a section on business environment, and it doesn't. And I think the taxation discussion in the city of Portland is largely an internal discussion in the sense that Oregon as a whole has a low tax rate, very low. The city tax rate that we see, the business finance fee, the data really doesn't support the idea that businesses are leaving the city as a result of the business finance tax fee. What we do see is that when companies are coming to the region and they're looking at, once they've already identified Portland as a place, the Portland region as a place that they want to do business, that comes into play. But we don't believe it comes into play, for example, in our larger recruitment efforts to make the region an attractive place to do business. So on the one hand, I think there's work to do to stabilize the fee structure, and I think there are ways to make Portland more competitive relative to other municipalities, but I don't think overall that it's a problem for us in terms of creating a competitive business environment.
We'll now take questions from the floor. Asking questions at Friday Forums is a privilege of City Club membership. We encourage all of our members to take their turn, and as I've said the last few weeks, if you've not done so, please, we encourage you to get up and ask a question. When you ask your question, please identify yourself as a City Club member and ask it in less than 30 seconds.
Ray Polani, a member of the City Club. Your paper here mentions the far-sighted investment in transit. And I have a question. Where is the subway to provide for speed and capacity through the urban core, both east and west? I think we're going to have a light rail on the transit mall, but for a regional light rail, it's going to be unbelievably slow and under capacity. So I think we are passing by a tremendous opportunity for green transportation. Green buildings are fine, but I think the future demands that we have greener transportation, and that means something that is competitive in speed and capacity with the automobile. How about Portland Development taking this on as a very important priority?
Was your question, why is our light rail system not faster?
The question is that through downtown, the light rail is slow and cumbersome and will be limited in the capacity that a regional light rail demands. And this also, you can say all these light rail lines are going to cross one bridge that is an opening bridge. I think this is going to be fatal.
Well, I think that's an interesting observation. I think it's probably too late to do an underground subway, in the sense that this city has made, and this region and state have made, tremendous investments in a light rail system that, in fact, has been replicated in many other cities nationally because of its reputation. So a subway, in many respects, is faster, but I think that we have decided on a light rail system, and it's expanding, and many people are quite pleased with its performance.
Absolutely the wrong decision. You mentioned Seattle and San Francisco. You tell me one important city in the nation that does not have a subway through the core.
Ron Paul, City Club member. Erin, thank you. In the past, we've meandered through a number of clusters, biotech, creative services. What would a post-cluster economic framework look like?
A post-cluster economic framework?
Yes, if we were more transcendent in our thinking and laid the groundwork for not only current trends, but long into the future.
Well, I actually think that our focus on clean tech and sustainable industries is quite forward-looking. We are really looking to lay the groundwork here now for the next 30 years. And when we talk about clean tech, we are talking about it as a cluster, but in fact, it contains many, many, many industries, from those firms involved in energy efficiency to electric vehicles to renewable energy to engineering and consulting. So I don't want us to think that when we talk about clusters that that's actually a narrow way of thinking about the economy. The cluster framework is really a way of making sense out of the economy. We have tens of thousands of firms in this region, and we need a way to organize them conceptually and figure out where we should invest scarce resources. So I think it's important to recognize that this is actually a very robust framework. It is a framework that I believe is considered best practice for economic development, and I don't think we've done clusters right yet, so I wouldn't want to start being focusing on a post-cluster economy until we've determined that the strategy we've identified and selected for investment isn't working. That said, I appreciate that there are many other things we do really well in this region that we should pay attention to. But what we needed to do in this strategy was make some hard choices. And that's really what a strategy is all about. It's more about what you're not going to do. I mean, it's as much about what you're not going to do as what you are going to do. And I think right now, today, at this time, we believe these are the industries where we have competitive advantage and a lot of potential. So let's work on this now, and we'll keep checking in every year to see how we're doing and what we're delivering. And one of the things I think we all want to be really open to in this strategy is continuous improvement. We want to track our progress, and we know we didn't get everything right in this strategy. And what we want to be able to do is make mid-course corrections and really have metrics and accountability in place so that we can say, you know what, that wasn't the right industry. It's not growing in the way that we anticipated and expected, and we're going to now shift and try to figure out what makes more sense. So we're open, but we're sticking with the clusters.
I'm Ann O'Neill. I'm a member of City Club, and I've lived here in Portland for 2 years, but I work in New Jersey. I'm a telecommuter. My daughter has lived here for 3 years, and she works in California. She's a telecommuter. So we pay our local taxes. We both work for firms that are large enough. Our income taxes are automatically paid here. There are no geographical advantages to our employers for working here, but there's no disadvantages. So we can make the personal choice to be here. And I guess I'm wondering, there is often reported a growth in telecommuters. Is this something that's statistically easy to track? And is there any advantage to doing so?
Actually, I think that's a really, really interesting question. One of the things that I see and hear anecdotally, and I think we do need a way of trying to quantify this, you and your daughter have chosen Portland presumably because you want to live here. Yeah? Okay, thumbs up. And I don't know how many trips you have to make to New Jersey every year, and I don't know how many trips that's not too bad, 3. But what we're finding, again, and I think this is what we know about Portland, people come here, a lot of people come here without jobs. They come here because they want to live here, and then they figure out what they're going to do. And that's part of why we're struggling economically. We're so attractive, we've got to figure out where all these people are going to work. And so this is one solution. You can telecommute, and that's great. That's actually, I think, a pretty good solution. A lot of people don't have that option, and I think what we do have is a lot of underemployment in this city and region. People who are highly educated, highly skilled, who aren't able to necessarily find a job that fully utilizes the level of talent they have. So we're not tracking that from a kind of data collection point of view, but I think it would be interesting, and I have to think about how we would do that. But there are probably a lot of you out there.
Andrew Mason, City Club member. You spoke about, with respect to the neighborhood innovation, the small business incubation, the economic gardening, the growing our own strategy, and I was curious in the competitiveness goal, I didn't hear the same thing with respect to our education in the city, and I'm wondering what the role of education has been in developing the plan, and if we have a growing our own strategy with respect to economic development specifically.
When you say education, are you speaking about K through 12 or post-secondary?
Yeah, I think secondary, and as it leads into post-secondary, because I appreciate that you were saying we were doing some research and development on the PSU campus and with OHSU. So I'm thinking secondary and as it leads into post-secondary.
That's a question that comes up a lot when we talk about the strategy, and clearly there's a lot of work to do on the K through 12 system. It's a real issue and a concern for employers, and we hear that all the time. At the same time, the strategy itself does not focus on K through 12. That was a conscious choice. There's other work going on in that area, and we have to sort of delineate. It's somewhat artificial, frankly. But if we go into that realm, that's a big, complex area for reform. And so we didn't want to take that on. But we are very clear about the need to really align our workforce investment dollars behind the strategy, as well as partner with our institutions of higher ed on research and development and workforce development. So I think we need to link these conversations, the conversations around job growth and K through 12, and that's happening. The mayor and Chair Wheeler have commissioned an education cabinet, and then we also have this economic development cabinet. So we got to figure out a way to start that dialogue.
Hello, Erin. My question for you today is, will the plan be further modified to identify more specific opportunities for engaging aging baby boomers and transitioning Gen Xers for roles in the sustainable economy defined in the plan? I had the opportunity to read the plan in advance of the July 8th City Council hearing where it was approved, and I'd love to hear you speak to that, because at this point I'm not seeing that, and perhaps I overlooked.
So whether the strategy has specific ways of integrating baby boomers and Gen Xers into the sustainable economy, is that your question?
Thank you.
Well, that's an interesting question. I haven't thought about it specifically in that way. I believe that opportunities in this growing sustainable economy and clean economy are available to everyone. If you're asking whether it's sort of a career transition, moving from one career to another career, that is not specifically part of the strategy, but it's certainly something to think about. I'm not sure whether people are struggling to move from one career path into what we call green jobs. Is that your sense?
That is some of it, but the intent of the question, that's part of the intent. The other intent, though, is capitalizing on human capital that we already have here. And the plan seems very focused on people in their 20s and people coming in new to the area. And especially in light of what you just said about job creation for those folks, I'm interested to hear what the plans are, what the plan could encompass for people that are here that have been laid off or who now see this as a time for a change. So
Okay.
that was a part of the intent as well.
Yes, I think what we're focused on there is really looking at the workforce development system, the Portland Community College system, and its ability to really provide the kind of training and technical training for what we anticipate to be growth areas in the new green economy. And that is work that's underway. We should emphasize that more in the strategy if it's not coming out clearly. I think you raise an important point. Thank you.
Kurt Webering, member. You mentioned measuring progress. And a year ago, the City Club did a report on business environment, and they recommended a similar recommendation about measuring progress. They suggested the auditor's office be a focus for that. And so my question is, what's the progress on measuring progress, and when might we see some metrics?
Great question. We are currently in the process of developing specific work plans for all of the action items in the strategy, as well as metrics. We're going to be bringing those to the City Council in September. And then I think a critical next step for us is to determine who the keeper and tracker of the metrics is going to be. Because one of the things that I know the City Club identified in its business environment scan, and we've also identified in our work, is that we don't have a centralized economic research function in the city, and I think we really are going to need that to create sort of reliability and consistency in tracking the progress of the strategy. So that's actually an area that we've called out for attention, and I think we'll have some answers to that when we go to City Council in September.
Sam Adams, City Club member. I just want to make it really clear to everyone assembled here and those listening in that PDC has turned the corner. This is a new PDC focused on economic development. We have a new Bureau of Housing. It's got great people like Erin and Bruce Warner, a PDC commission that is enthusiastic. And when she said that this was endorsed by the City Council with enthusiasm, it was endorsed with enthusiasm and a great depth and breadth of folks in the room, and a complete, a standing room only, pretty much packed house at City Council. So the enthusiasm that the new PDC brings to this, I just want to thank you, Erin, for your great leadership, Bruce Warner, the commission, and the pieces are in place to move forward. Got a lot of work to do, but the folks are in place to get it done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it.
Tony Accarino, City Club member. I'm just wondering if there's a tension between two parts of your economic development strategy. On the one hand, you're trying to grow businesses that can sell goods and services outside the region, in other words, traded sector businesses that bring in capital. On the other hand, you want to focus on strengthening neighborhood commercial districts, like, for example, a Hawthorne Boulevard. Now, I live off of Hawthorne Boulevard, and I can't think of many businesses on Hawthorne that are selling goods and services beyond the region, except maybe the tattoo parlor where someone from Boise comes and gets a tattoo. So is there a tension between those two aspects of your plan?
That's a great question. And from my perspective, the answer is absolutely not. In fact, there's a great relationship between the two, because it is those individuals working in traded sector companies where the jobs are growing, those software firms downtown, those activewear designers downtown that are basically making the big bucks, and they're spending it in your neighborhood. And they're going to restaurants, and they're buying clothes in all those great boutiques, and they're drinking beer, and they're buying $4 cups of coffee. And the only way they can do that is really by being employed in these traded sector companies. So as the traded sector companies bring wealth into the region, there's more demand for all these local businesses. So it's actually really a win-win. So I don't see it as a tension at all. If there is a tension, the tension is our ability to deliver on both goals, because we don't have the staff capacity necessarily or the resources to do both really well. But overall, more people are employed by the local economy, by companies that serve the local economy than by companies that trade in the global economy. So that's why we're so sharply focused on those traded sector firms, because they fuel the local economy.
Jim Zarin, City Club member. I want to ask another question sort of about tension. We've had over the years, as you discussed, efforts at economic development that has its own lingo and language and assumptions, et cetera. In the meantime, we have in this region a very well-developed system of land use growth management planning, mostly centered over at Metro, but participated in by the city and other local jurisdictions. And as Metro and the jurisdictions continue to do their work on land use, transportation, growth management, they have to deal with a lot of assumptions about economic development, the need for land use to support certain kinds of industries, the industry splits and shares, et cetera. Especially as a person somewhat new to our region, what's your sense of how well those two worlds are connected and integrated and talking to each other effectively for the good of the region overall and the city overall?
I think they can be a lot better connected. I believe that economic development has not been front and center for Metro. And one of the things that's challenging is that really economic development is a regional discipline. It's not a city discipline. But the City of Portland and PDC have de facto become, in many respects, the regional economic development agency, because this region has never had and struggles to build a regional economic development organization. And as a result, we do continue to have disconnects. I think more dialogue is in play now, and I believe that with the city getting much clearer about what its priorities are, that facilitates a greater collaborative dialogue. But I think you point out a very important piece of the puzzle here, the regional puzzle that we need to work on.
Steve Shell, member. I wonder if you could give us a little critique. The critique is, how is our Portland Ambassador program working? A critique about how is our outreach to across to Asia, to other places. How is Greenlight Portland working? How's the Oregon Business Association working? Can you run through 3 or 4 of those and tell us, frankly, what you think?
Frankly? No. Kidding, joking. Again, I think we have a lot of good, well-intentioned organizations. I think we have too many organizations. We have a tendency to proliferate organizations in this region and in this state. So I think making some hard choices, some consolidation, or at least really clear alignment of goals and strategies across all of these organizations are in order. I think we're doing better. I think this challenge has been recognized, and leadership in all these organizations is driving toward more seamless coordination. But we do hear, and we have heard recently, that you know, when you go to a place like Denver or Chicago, the coordination for business recruitment is seamless from top to bottom, from the governor to the mayor to the economic development directors in the various jurisdictions. The collateral, I mean, things as simple as the brand and the collateral for the city and region are consistent. We have work to do here, and I think we've recognized it, and the strategy attempts to tackle it in some key ways.
We've come to the end of our time for this week. As was mentioned, the economic development strategy can be found on the web at www.pdxeconomicdevelopment.com. Please join us on July 31st for the first in our two-part legislative wrap-up. As we close, please join me in expressing our appreciation to today's speaker, the Portland Development Commission's Erin Flynn. Thank you. We're adjourned.